Are we live?
Yes.
We are live. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 504 webinar on Are we live? Oh, yeah. See, there is a delay on on YouTube. And so I can hear myself echoing. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Turn this off. All right. It's good to see you all. I'm Holly Bell. I'm the Student Family Rights Specialist from the Utah State Board of Education. We were supposed to be in our fancy studio today, and I decided to give Vertigo a try. So I didn't want to risk anyone's life, and we are on Zoom, tried and true. And I no longer, right now I'm fine. I don't feel like I'm a star in an Alfred Hitchcock movie. If you don't know which one I'm talking about, that's one of your homework assignments, because you need to know, and you never know, I might test you on that. So let's get started. I want to take care of a few things before we start. And I know we've got, I think we have some school nurses, so hi. And we do have a lot of different people that join our webinars, and I love it. And so for those of you who are educators, have an educator license, who want Midas credit, you can get 1.5 Midas credits for attending this webinar. I am going to send out through the 504 listserv a short questionnaire for you to fill out, and then you'll put your information on and we'll enter the Midas credit in about a couple weeks. And so, and then I will be monitoring the YouTube chat. And like I said, there's a slight delay, so I'm watching myself. It's weird. So I will be checking YouTube and alerting our presenters that we have some questions when we have a chance to pause. And yes, we will be sharing all the materials after. I might pause on those of you who want Midas credit, because I don't want you to cheat. I want to make sure you're listening, and we need to give people a chance to watch. The YouTube link is the same link that will be on YouTube that you can watch for all eternity. So I am going to introduce enough of this. I'm going to introduce my guests, who are geniuses, and I don't have to say much except ask questions, because I don't know things. We have Michelle Tanner from who's the superintendent of School for the Deaf. We have Susan Patton, the superintendent of School for the Blind. Teresa Judd is our deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind specialist at the Utah State Board of Education in the special education section. And Dana Archuleta is our vision specialist at the Utah State Board of Education in the special education section. So I have the opportunity of working with Teresa and Dana frequently and learning from them. And then our special guests are our interpreters. We have Bethany Anderson, who is on screen. And then we'll have Emily Beatty, who is they're going to switch off. And so we appreciate them so much for being with us today. And I am going to hand the time over to these geniuses. I'm just going to let you go. So.
Thank you, Holly. I like Holly said, I am Susan Patton, and I'm the superintendent over the School for the Blind, and we are very excited to be here and to be able to share some information. Hopefully you'll leave here with some questions as far as what goes on at USDB. We'll tell you what goes on, but I'm sure you'll have some questions. And as always, we want you to know to feel free to reach out to us in regards to any services that we talk about, or because this is going to be, just an hour and a half, and we certainly we have a lot. So anyway,
and hopefully they end with more answers than questions.
Yes, you're going to have more answers. Yes, but then that's going to probably spur some questions as well. So once you get thinking about things. So yeah, Dana, I think we're ready to go.
I'll just start there. So just for those of you that don't know, USDB has been around for over 138 years. It actually started with, you see up in the right corner there, a little girl who is the first deaf child. That was in 1884. And then that was a daughter of a man who was concerned about her education. And then in 1896, we became a state and we added the blind school. And so we've grown from a long ways. You can just keep going. Just as you know, USDB is not your typical school. Very unique. And we've been here. We're even unique amongst state schools because we provide services on campus programs, and we'll talk about that more, and other opportunities from birth to 3 and throughout the state. So we're unique even in the field of deaf and blind schools. And then we got a video for you that we thought you might enjoy.
I'm Snow. I want to tell you about our awesome families, campuses, and programs across the entire state at Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind, or USDB.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I go to the Jean Massue School of the Deaf. I want to tell you about some of our awesome students, campuses, and programs across the entire state at Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. Students can attend one of our 3 campuses in Ogden, Salt Lake City, or Springville. Statewide, students can access highly skilled educators in their own neighborhood schools.
Here's Superintendent Joe Coleman.
A majority of our teachers don't actually work on our campuses. We have our own classrooms here, but probably almost 2/3 of our teachers go out every day throughout the state, and they work with other teachers to consult with them and help them, or they work directly with the students to teach Braille or to teach language skills or whatever those students need on their individual plans. So one of the nice things about the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind is that their education is completely customized. It's very personalized.
From Tooele in the west, from Vernal in the east, from Cache County in the north to St. George in the south, we have highly skilled teachers making a difference in the lives of so many students. Families can access all of the support and resources Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind has to offer. Education is personalized to meet the individual needs of each child, like Ethan's family.
Knowledge is power, and when it comes to kids with special needs, you need as many knowledgeable people in your corner to help guide you, and just use it. Use the people, use them to find out all you can and find your resources, because they are out there and you will be able to get them, and you will make it easier for you, and you'll have more strength because of it.
In Heber, one little girl who was hard of hearing went from crying under her desk in silence to mastering listening and spoken language.
I have noticed a big difference. Before, she was not able to even say 3 or 4 words together. Compared to now, she talks about anything she wants, or have sat down with us at the table and started this conversation. So it's been a big difference.
It's incredible, without the USDB working together with our teachers, our students wouldn't get the services they need. When our teachers and USDB works hand in hand, students benefit.
In Paiute, Utah, Kaylee is deaf and uses American Sign Language. Technology connects her to teachers and ASL specialists a few hours away. The interpreter helps Kaylee gain the best education possible.
The Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind now reach their most distant students through video conferencing.
We know what the classes will be talking about, make sure that we are researching so we know how to describe the events that are happening.
The prep amounts to as much as 2 hours a day of homework for the interpreter.
Okay, 1B.
But it adds up to a world of difference for the student.
And it helps me to get the words, and I don't miss them as much.
To Miller,
I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I'm very proud to be deaf.
Technology plays a big role in the life of a successful student. Sean Fletcher in Vernal, too. He is blind and wears glasses, which can connect to a remote guide who can see Sean's surroundings.
I use them at the grocery store, I use them walking around the community, I use them in class occasionally to describe the board, or if I'm watching like a video on the projector that needs described, I could have an earbud in and have it described, or have the agent talk to me through the earbud. And that has become really useful to me.
In northern Utah, in the Tremonton area, one young student has advanced 3 reading levels in Braille in just 1 year, thanks to her teacher for students who are visually impaired.
I think increased learning Braille is very important. I think with our technology these days, we tend to think that our kids don't need to read Braille, but I still think it's an important thing to do so that they can use them in the workforce and at home later in life, and especially in college as well.
An outreach teacher with the Utah Schools for the Deaf travels to Brigham City to help Cameron, who is hard of hearing. Her parents say that they are grateful.
It takes an army to get the things that we need. It takes the teacher in the classroom, it takes the outreach program teachers, it takes the special ed teachers, it takes the principals. It takes so many people to get things done.
Students have IEP teams with parents, teachers, and other experts. The IEP team determines if the student should go to a local school or a USDB campus. Some of those students can attend the Ogden campus and live in the cottages during the week so they don't have to commute long distances. Utah's children also have resources before preschool and after 12th grade. The Parent-Infant Program travels to the homes of deaf and blind children from birth to age 3, and the STEP program helps connect students up to 22 years old with college or career training.
That's a brief intro, believe it or not. We're going to expand on that. Susan and I will. We'll be explaining more. So we're going to touch on some of these things. So we are authorized within the state to operate. And that's the code reference there. We've left the link there so that everybody can see it, access it, use it. And these are the programs that are established in the code, which is School for the Deaf, the School for the Blind. And we have programs for the deaf, blind, and we also have a parent-infant program. So we have 2 bodies that govern our schools. We have the State Board of Education, which is our governing body. That's who we answer to and report to. However, we have a USDB advisory council that we meet with also monthly, and they get really into the weeds with us. They spend time with us. We talk about issues that we can really delve into, and whereas at the board, we can't get as deep as we'd like to, but they're great conversations. And so we have 2 reporting bodies that we report to.
And I think it's important there to point out that our local board, like every other district has their local board. Our local board, as Michelle said, is our State Board of Education, which needs to be emphasized because a lot of people don't understand that we answer directly to the State Board of Education.
Yeah.
So for eligibility for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind, as the video pointed out, we have many services. We have our outreach services, but we also have our campus services where students come to the school as the LEA. And a student is eligible to receive services from us if they from the School for the Blind if they're, number 1, a resident of Utah. They have to be younger than 22 years of age. They have to be referred to USDB by the person's school district or of residence or a local early intervention agency. And they need to be identified as deaf, blind, deaf, blind, or deaf-blind. Now, that isn't that they have to be classified deaf-blind. They need to be identified as deaf-blind. So that I want to make that clarification as well. They're not necessarily classified as vision or hearing or deaf-blind. And then after they're identified, the special education eligibility determines the process, and the Section 504 eligibility determination process. So all of our students come to us from the IEP team through the district, or the 504 through the district as well.
And that's a confusing thing sometimes. That
Yes.
Sometimes think we could just take them and they can register them. And there is a slight caveat for the deaf. If a student came from a residential program for a deaf students in another state, we can call the IEP, but we still involve the district. We never take a student without the district's involvement. And we can also take 504 students, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so
this is the
Michelle,
School for the Deaf.
You do this one. You do this one.
This one's School for the Deaf. So as I said, it was established in 1884. So we predate statehood, which is wonderful, actually, because once we got rolling, we got access to land. We owned land when the state became a state, which has benefited our students, which we'll talk about later, and even to this day in 2024. But we have two different programs within the School for the Deaf at our campus programs that we primarily talk about. You'll hear what we call ASL English, or bilingual bicultural, and you'll also hear what's often referred to as an oral program or a listening and spoken language program. These historically, throughout history, have warred. There have been two different camps. They have not gotten along, and they have very different philosophies on how they view deaf and hard of hearing children. So those who use sign language view that as a cultural difference, as any other culture has a difference, and they see themselves as whole with no need to be fixed. The people that use oral or spoken language apply more of an assimilation approach to get more involved with the rest of the world, the hearing world, and to be more involved in that world through the use of their ears and speaking. So that's how those two combinations go. Here at the Utah School for the Deaf, we know that each group has a benefit to a child. So there will be some students who will be more spoken language students, and there will be students that are more using of American Sign Language. However, the bulk of them will have access to both. And so we have both of them in all of our campuses, and those campuses are in Salt Lake, Ogden, Springville, and St. George. And Holly, I saw you had a question. I'm going to pause there for a second.
Well, I hope this is the right time to talk about this, but I remember a few years ago, you and I had a conversation because I was calling deaf or hard of hearing students hearing impaired. And so you let me know that they actually prefer deaf or hard of hearing. And is that part of just that cultural piece? Because I did a little quiz of all the 504 coordinators, and I think whoever, like one person got that term right. Everyone else who took the quiz thought it was hearing impaired, and one person knew it was deaf and hard of hearing was the appropriate term. So is this kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, that's important distinction to make. I try to help people out to not use that term. Unfortunately, our IDEA uses the term hearing impaired. And we are waiting anxiously for the next time they open up the IDEA so that we can change that term across the entire nation. But that basically implies, so they term, the deaf community calls those of us here on the call right now as hearing people. They call us as hearing people. So by saying hearing impaired, it means they're a hearing person that's less than. And that's simply not the case. They are not less than, they're equal to. And so that's not a term that we use. If you use that term, you'll be tagged real quick within the community that you are ignorant of a lot of the things that go on with deaf and hard of hearing people. So I highly recommend that you use deaf and hard of hearing, because that term is outdated. I've even sent things to shows sometimes when they use words. I've even sent email, just FYI, that term is offensive to the group that you are trying to talk about. Maybe pick, it's offensive. I mean, we get to choose how we'd like to be called.
Yeah.
They would rather be called deaf and hard of hearing. And I think it's.
And most people are, I mean, I know that I'm not in that world, but I do know that most people are not, nobody's trying to be offensive.
Right.
No, it's just, they just don't know. Right. So
exactly.
It's just kind of a good thing to know.
I appreciate it. I'm learning all the time.
Spread the word.
I am. This is one of those times I'm spreading the word.
You are.
But the nice thing about 504 is they don't have categories.
Yeah. Right. Right. So you don't have to use those special. Yeah. The IDEA laws. Yeah. Well, here in the state of Utah, we've changed all that, by the way. In the state of Utah, we say deaf and hard of hearing. We have in all of our code. There was a few years back, they changed everything for us. So in the state of Utah, we use the terms deaf and hard of hearing, and I've really appreciated our legislature who helped us make that change. But it should be everywhere.
Great. Okay.
I should also, the thing that's the biggest issue with the deaf school is language and communication choice. And I believe strongly that we should not be doing a forced choice, that you only get one option. So a few years back, we have made the decision to work together. So, and it took a while because there were such strongly held beliefs and feelings against what the others have said that may have been offensive. And so we have been working ardently to change that. So here at the Utah Schools for the Deaf, we embrace both of them. We have students who use spoken language. We have students who use American Sign Language, and we have students that use both. And on the campus programs, we structure that so that they can spend time as appropriate, depending on what their IEP team says. We will honor that, and we honor their choices. We have lots of interpreters that are available to help that facilitate communication between the groups. And even if a student is chosen as their modality, spoken language, it does not hurt ever to use sign language. Sign language is only a bonus. It's only a benefit. And so there are many students who choose to speak, but learn some sign language too. And it's a way to broaden your world. So we do that. I'm not going to link to the video at this point, but I think I would reference it. If somebody would like to look at the two different modality choices, we have a link there that helps you to look at that. It's a very different way to do things than there are at other schools for the deaf. So to understand our structure, I've already alluded to it a bit here. We have a USDB superintendent who helps with things programmatically across, like at the legislative level. His role is things of that nature, monetary level. But the superintendents of the deaf school and the blind school, we run the schools. So I'm running the school for the deaf. Under that, we have a parent-infant program. The parent-infant program, I think we go into depth a bit later, but that is for our birth to 3 children that they find out they have a baby, the baby has a hearing loss. And we are connected with the Department of Health. We go into the homes immediately and we provide services to all children that have any type of hearing loss. Then we have 4 self-contained schools for the School for the Deaf. So we have a self-contained school in Salt Lake, in Ogden, in Springville, and a small one in St. George. Our largest campus is in Salt Lake City. It has right now just over 175 students, which is a large school for the deaf. And that's not counting, all the outreach stuff we do. But that is our largest campus. We have 60 at the other 2 campuses and a smaller number, about 30 out in St. George. We also have some classes that we put together. Let's say, for example, we don't have enough students to create a school, but we have enough students that have come together. There are 5 or 6 students, varying ages, and we will collaborate with a school district and create a classroom out there. We currently have a classroom in Price, and that's going really well. We have a teacher we sign out there. USDB runs those IEPs. USDB provides the instruction, but we collaborate with that school district. Then, oh, it looks like it's still duplicated there. But anyway, and we also have outreach itinerant services, which is about 1,100 students or more. We're hitting around 1,200 now of deaf and hard of hearing students across the state. Primarily, those students are spoken language students, students who use their hearing and their hearing aids or cochlear implants to access their world. And then we have a few students who have an interpreter out there, and simply it's because they can't get to one of our campuses. So we provide an interpreter in a different ways. We like to do them in person. I know the video showed you an online option. We do that for when we can't find a live interpreter to be present. We prefer a live interpreter, but we certainly, if we're going to go without, we can't do that. So we provide in those situations a virtual interpreter. And so the interpreting services are under me. I have 50 interpreters throughout the state that we serve in a variety of capacities. Some of them are staff interpreters here on campus. Some of them serve the students on campus. And then we also have students in the outreach who have the interpreters. So we have them all over the place. We also have related services that we offer. The number one service that USDB is requested for is audiology. It is the biggest requested service. It is the highest number of students served. Audiology is the number one service. And we're finding as more and more districts, like their audiologist may retire, they don't feel like they need a full-time audiologist. They're contracting with us more and more to provide the audiological services. And that aspect of the School for the Deaf has only grown in the last 10 years. It's a big number. And that's what we provide a lot to the districts.
Okay, so here we go with the School for the Blind. As Michelle said earlier, we were established in 1896. There's several education options that are available that, again, are determined through the IEP process. So our students come to us from their local school districts or charter schools from the IEP team that decides that their placement would be most suited at the School for the Blind. To be determined that has to be determined that vision is their primary educational need. And it, it's very, very individualized. We, in addition to the core curriculum, Utah core curriculum, we follow a Utah code that provides appropriate Braille instruction to students in both our USB classrooms, but also in our USB itinerant outreach settings. And the School for the Blind, we have the majority of our students and teachers are in the outreach. That sounds like we're like in Australia or something. They're out in the outreach. They're served in their local, in their LEAs, whether that be a charter school or a district. And we're serving, we send teachers of the visually impaired and orientation and mobility specialists and teachers of the deaf blind into the school districts to serve those students. And then a big key, and probably if there was something that I would like people to go away with as far as with for the School for the Blind, is this third point that in addition to the core curriculum, we also target the expanded core curriculum. ECC, and those are skills that are taught to assist students in their academic endeavors, including things like independent living, orientational mobility, and technology. There are actually 9 identified areas in the expanded core curriculum that, if you think about it, when just think of like in the last hour of your day. And the things that you were learning incidentally, it might be that you were in your office and somebody came in and you had some social interaction, or maybe that you were going to lunch with somebody and you had to identify your surroundings. Our students aren't getting that, so we have to directly teach this, and we have to directly teach them how to access their environment and the people in those environments. So it takes more than just the core curriculum and academics, and we target those, and that is a federally mandated rule, so that we have to address the 9 expanded core curriculum areas, and we do that at our campus, in the outreach, and with our other extracurricular and enrichment activities. So here's the structure for the School for the Blind. We have, as Michelle said, Joe Coleman is our USDB superintendent, and then I am the associate superintendent of the School for the Blind. We are a little bit different than the School for the Deaf in that a couple years ago, we established what we call the Early Childhood Division, which took our parent-infant program from birth through age 3, and we combined that with our preschool program. So our early childhood actually goes from birth through age 5. And it's been a nice collaborative effort because number one, the teachers that are required to teach the parent-infant program have the same teaching license as the teachers that are teaching preschool. So it's been a very, very nice collaborative effort because we can provide professional development to all of them. They can support one another. And then we have our campus programs. We have two different campus programs. We have our elementary campus program, and then we have our Bridges High School. And the Bridges High School is a secondary program. The high school is located in Ogden, and then our elementary classrooms are in Ogden, Salt Lake, and in Springville. One of the things that is a statewide resource, that is our Utah State Instructional Materials Access Center. You don't need to remember all of that because it's not something that just rolls off of your tongue. But if you could remember USIMAC, because USIMAC is the accessibility center for our students statewide who need Braille or large print. I'll have a little bit more information about USIMAC. Then we have our outreach itinerant services, and in our outreach, we have two different divisions who are our outreach division or outreach divisions. We have one that's deafblind services, and those have 15 teachers of the deafblind, and then they have interveners that the teachers of the deafblind oversee, and those work in the local school district with students who have both the vision and the hearing. So those students actually on our campus program, we have a few that actually are in the deaf school, and then we have a few that are also in the blind school. So as complicated as we are, it gets just even more complicated when we are serving students who are deaf blind, who have both the vision and the hearing loss. We also have our outreach vision itinerant services, and those are teachers of the visually impaired and orientation and mobility instructors, and they serve LEAs and charter schools throughout the state. We also have an assistive technology and low vision services. This is a statewide program that is available to all students statewide that we can help with providing an assistive technology piece of equipment on a trial basis so that the student in any school district they can take data and find out if that piece of equipment is going to be suitable or going to be beneficial for the student, and then the district would need to purchase that. But it's difficult for districts or charter schools to just go on a whim and buy something that is, $15,000, $6,000 to $15,000, and they don't have the data that's been collected to say that that's what the student needs. So we do provide that service. Then the low vision services, we have an optometrist that works with our assistive technology team, and he is able to provide low vision assessments, and they're actually considered clinical assessments. So he can actually prescribe glasses that we have vouchers for students who might need some financial help for vouchers. We also have some vouchers that if they need an ophthalmology appointment, that Dr. Judkins, who's our optometrist, can then refer them to an ophthalmologist, and we have vouchers for those as well. And that is free of charge for all districts in the entire state. We also have our related services, and this is including orientation and mobility. These serve primarily on our campuses with the occupational therapy, physical therapy, our nursing, and our adaptive PE. So our USDB campus programs, we have the JMS, John Massue School for the Deaf, and that's in Salt Lake City. And again, that's under Michelle. We have our Kenneth C. Burdett School of the Deaf, and that's in Ogden. the Elizabeth DeLong School for the Deaf, and that's in Springville, and the St. George campus in Bloomington Hills. Bloomington Hills only has a school for the deaf. We do not have any blind students currently being served at our St. George campus. That's not to say that the need's not there and that that won't happen in the future, but right now we don't have that. The School for the Blind has preschool programs on Salt Lake, Ogden, and Springville program or campuses. And then we have our USB Outlook Elementary. And again, that elementary school is on all 3 campuses. And then our Bridges High School, our secondary school, is in Ogden.
So these are just some images of the schools.
Yeah. Oh, and that's our St. George. This is the one we're most proud of, right, Michelle?
I don't know. Well, somehow we missed the picture but you saw it in the video of the Elizabeth DeLong School.
Yes, right here.
There it is.
Yep,
there it
right
is.
Here. So
that's the newest building. And
it's kind of my favorite. I'm not going to lie. The Springville building is my favorite.
Mine too. So as I alluded to before, to help people understand, the Department of Health has responsibility to children from birth to 3 years of age for whatever disability they may have. When it comes to a deaf or blind child or deaf-blind child, USDB also has some responsibility to these students because we are here to serve students with any hearing or vision loss. So we collaborate and we are partnered hand in hand with the Department of Health. We are the service provider for any child with a hearing or vision loss. We are the ones but we are connected into the system with the Department of Health. So our staff attends their meetings, participates in their IFSP meetings. Those are for the family service plan, for those of you who don't know. And so they're integrally involved in there. And interestingly enough, people wonder why there's a higher number of students served in that population and then less when they get to school age. It's because there is a broader context, because we are partnering with the Department of Health. It's any child with any type of hearing loss. There isn't really a qualification. Whereas when you get into school age, we have qualifications between an IDEA or 504 plan. So,
and I would like to mention there too, along with that, Michelle, with our blind low vision children below the age of 3, we can serve in the homes and in early intervention with what's called an informed clinical. So they can say, the parents can say, or the pediatrician can say something's going on, but we don't have any documentation. We can't prove it with an ophthalmology report, but something's going on. And because under IDEA, we can, in early intervention, serve with it on an informed clinical, which is a really nice piece of, it gives us more information to take back to an ophthalmologist. Yes, there is a problem, or you know what, this student is we just needed to structure the environment and do some different vision exercises to get the child up to speed. So I was just talking about our parent infant program. We serve babies from 0 to age 3, both blind, visually impaired, deaf, hard of hearing. We both serve children birth through 3. Do you want to talk a little bit about the mentoring, Michelle?
Sure. We also, on the School for the Deaf, as we've told you, language is the name of the game. Language, 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 language. The worst thing we want to happen is what we call language deprivation. It's very prevalent in the field. And so that's important. So we send in deaf mentors into the homes. These are deaf adults who help the parents understand what it's going to be like for their life as they grow to and mature to adulthood. So it's an important program that we add to our parent infant program.
Okay, so Deaf Blind Services is a very unique service, very unique to the state of Utah. We are a premier program in the nation. We are the only state that provides interveners for students who are deaf blind. Again, those interveners are working one-on-one with students who have the concomitant loss of both the vision and the hearing. And the intervener's primary responsibility is to provide access to that student who has both the vision and the hearing loss, that combination. A very, very low incident disability group, however, very, very vulnerable and takes extra specialized work. The interveners are trained, have a rigorous training that they go through. we offer adequate and appropriate supports as soon as children are identified, and that is birth through age 22. So Deafblind Services also serves in early intervention. Our deafblind teachers, they serve every student identified as deafblind. And that is we are in Utah different than any other state in that every student identified as deafblind receives the services of a teacher who is deafblind, who is an endorsed teacher with a special ed teaching license and a deafblind endorsement. That is happening only in the state of Utah. There are other states, a few states who offer the deafblind endorsement, but we are the only state that is a requirement. So we're very, very proud of that. And a lot of states look to Utah for as far as the model for deafblind services.
We have also a resource center. Many of you might call this a library, but ours is more than a library. We provide resources to everyone throughout the state. Parents, if they have a child with a hearing or vision loss, staff, districts. We have equipment that people can check out. We have so many services and resources at our Educational Resource Center, and we call it the ERC. And we hope everybody takes advantage of it. So tuck that one in the back of your head to know that we have that one there for you if you ever need it.
And that is a statewide resource that they don't have to be an employee of USDB to access. They can have an account established and they can access the Educational Resource Center. So this is I mentioned this, the Utah State Instructional Material Access Center. Pretty much USIMAC, it was established to be able to provide Braille and large print material for all students who are blind and low vision. And so teachers of the visually impaired or regular ed teachers through the teacher of the visually impaired have to submit, I'm just going to give you an example, a textbook. And we like to have that, the deadline is April 1st for the next school year, so that we can get that textbook brailled and to the student before the beginning of the next school year. Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of teachers who are not sure the curriculum. They might be using several curriculums or whatnot. And so April 1st is a little daunting. So we do have a lot of materials that is submitted late after April 1st. And the only problem there is we usually have to submit it back to them in a draft form with the quality assurance, but it's not been through all of the quality assurance. One thing that I really want to hone in on here is that by law, every student who is blind or visually impaired must have the same accessibility to all of their sighted peers material. So if a regular education student or regular education teacher has not, let's say they were going to give a test, and let's say it was in a worksheet form, and they neglected, and they're trying their very best, but they neglected to get that brailled. They could not or should not, by law, be giving that test to anybody that is sighted if that student who is blind or visually impaired does not have the same material. And it shouldn't be that they're just being read to. It needs to be that they are reading that through Braille. Holly, you have a question.
Yeah. So is this also for those who are so they're not blind, they're visually impaired, so they need to put it in larger print, or
yes, so we do
that.
Braille and large print. Yes.
Yeah. Because we did a whole thing on 508 compliance, so ADA.
Right.
And like your PowerPoints, your presentations, that legally you have to have those accessible.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's something that maybe we don't think about as much, that like your tests and things they need to. For those
100%. And again, a lot of it is the system in and of itself that teachers try really hard. Obviously, the teachers are wanting to make sure that all of their materials are accessible. We completely understand that, and we work really diligently to make sure that the teachers do have what they need for those blind students, especially the blind students who are in need of Braille. And I will say too that some districts hire their own transcribers and whatnot, which is totally fine, and to produce their own Braille. The only problem with that is that sometimes those aren't going through the same quality control as we are mandated by law for USIMAC. There are also issues with the teachers must submit. It has to be in a certain format, so we can't just automatically change. Transcribe something, a teacher created material into Braille. It takes, so we have to have it in a certain format. So there's a lot of loopholes that have to be, and it's not a perfect system, you know, but it is something that by law, I wanted people to be aware of. By law, that's what has to happen for students who are blind. So I think of it as an exciting thing. And I'm always trying to look at ways to make things more accessible to blind, visually impaired students. However, it's always going to be a challenge. And it's never going to be something that we're like, oh, we're fine. We've got that taken care of. We're always going to be looking at how to make things more accessible. Always, always, always.
Well, and that's why we're doing this webinar, is because we're all doing our best, but there are some things that we just,
sure,
unless they're brought into our awareness, right?
Yeah.
I've learned over the course of time as I've associated with the blind school and with Susan, not all Braille is exactly the same. There's now unified Braille, and that's different than, you know, so what is the child actually using? They might be using, and they've got to be taught all that. So it's a lot of teaching reading, just like it's teaching reading. So they do a great job.
We try to get get the material in as quick as we can. If we can have it by April 1st, we can guarantee that information is going to be to the student by the first of the school year.
So we just wanted to let you know that we have things across the whole state. These are the statewide services. There are campus programs where we are lucky enough to combine and pull together a group of students together with similar needs, and they have peers and friendships that are very vital. But these are other ones that are that we also provide for anybody throughout the state. The early intervention is statewide. We have a post-high school program, so the students who graduate from school in their district have a hearing or vision loss. They have access to USDB up to age 22. We have extension classrooms. We do outreach services. We also help with diagnostic and consultation services with districts. That can also help with like assessments. Sometimes they ask us for, you know, could you please we need someone who is fluent in American Sign Language and can give this psychology assessment to this child with a hearing loss who uses American Sign Language. We do that. We also provide professional learning opportunities that are specific to our niche of deaf and deafblind. We loan equipment and we do assessments on low vision. So we have a lot of things that we can offer to the state, which we love to offer.
And, you know, I would say that if you had a question, let's say, you know, you're a 504 coordinator and you just had a question in regards to vision and hearing and you weren't able to find the answer, please reach out and ask, and we can, if we don't have the answer, we certainly can find out. And we're happy to do that. So. Okay, so in addition to all of the services that Michelle was talking about, we also have enrichment activities for all students with a sensory loss, blind, deaf, deaf-blind. And these are some of the activities that we offer. All of these are that we use trust land money to fund our enrichment programs, and they are to enrich the lives of the students and their families, but particularly the students. We provide athletics. We've had family support services like family camps. We have, again, our parent resource library. We do travel experiences. Michelle does a study abroad every year. And this year you're going to Tokyo with the group of Japan. Yep, they're going
all
to Japan.
over.
And the School for the Blind, we do more stateside activities because we're focusing on travel, how to navigate an airport O&M wise and whatnot. So we're looking at the larger districts in the nation. We do extra ECC curriculum activities for the blind. Michelle does American Sign Language classes, and then we have a lot of summer camps for both schools, the School for the Blind and the School for the Deaf.
We're talking to the tune of about 40 plus in the summer. It's a pretty amazing thing. I think it's also very important that everybody knows this is not operating funds. I know that Susan mentioned this already. This is enrichment. This, I talked to you about the land we own that's still benefiting children. This is the money that we are, the actually interest we earned off the land we own, and the benefit we use that, and we use it for these purposes. And the code is pretty strict. We can only use it to enrich the lives of deaf and deaf-blind students and their families.
So they don't, it doesn't pay for any salaries whatsoever. And also the School for the Blind, we're trying to expand our enrichment activities as far as supporting students who are wanting to do, for instance, go on a band trip. For a high school student, it might be in a different, district, but they need some help to access that band trip that they want to go on. We can help with these enrichment activities. We can also help families with different with their different activities to enrich the lives of the students as well.
This is a boon for the state, for deaf and hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired kids. I just want to show you, this is a briefer video. This gives you an example. This is my athletic director for the School for the Deaf.
Hello, I am Jonathan Helgeson, the Athletic Director and Extracurricular Director for the Utah Schools for the Deaf, or USD. Here at USD, we offer many sports and activities to any student with hearing loss throughout the state of Utah. For high school students, our sports program offers football, volleyball, basketball, and cheer. For all students, we provide after-school activities twice a week that include board game nights, crafts, kindness club, service projects, skiing, hiking, rock climbing, cooking, reading club, in addition to so many more. We even partner with Thanksgiving Point to provide different activities for our students. Our students have enjoyed study abroad experiences in countries such as Egypt, India, Italy, Germany, Thailand, and Peru. Recent stateside adventures have included, for history, Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia; for robotics, Alabama; for drone competition, Tennessee; for ROV and drones, Texas; for sailing, Boston in California; for basketball, Oregon, Arizona, Washington, Idaho, and New Mexico; for RIT's math competition, California; and for Academic Bowl, Washington, D.C. and New York. We have provided many amazing summer camps for deaf and hard of hearing students. Amongst many of these include our STEM camp, our aquarium camp, our swim camp, a camp at Wheeler Farms, and our art camp, in addition to so many other camps. We partner with many other entities, including Deaf West Theater, the Sanderson Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, many other schools for the deaf, universities such as RIT, UVU, and Gallaudet, other schools all over the Salt Lake Valley, community groups, and the National Ability Center. We here at USD thank you so much for your support for our students and these amazing programs.
I thought it was important. We could go on. That list goes on. It's pretty extensive, but we're pretty proud of the extracurricular opportunities we provide our students, because language isn't just developed from 9 to 3 every day. Language is developed by experiencing different events and participating. You'll notice that all of our international trips are to trips where people don't speak our same language. That's purposeful. We want to make sure that they're going to a place where they have to navigate it, where the language is a barrier. And so it's a great opportunity. We got lots of opportunities that we provide to the students, and that's just an example of one of them, or several of them, many of them. You're muted, Susan. This is our operations manual. So those of you, we're not going to go into this.
Yeah, we don't need to go through this, but just be aware that it's there, and you can refer back to it on, I think it's the next slide that has, yes. So it has the governing documents here that we have listed that you're welcome to explore.
So if you're at a school, the one that's most pertinent to you is the USDB Technical Assistance Manual. How do I work with USDB? How does it work? Who do I reach out to? How does it go? What's the procedure? That's the USDB Technical Assistance Manual. I recommend you access it.
And it is on our website too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead, Michelle, because you've got the majority of the kids here.
Yeah, okay. So if you're going to place, if there is the idea that you may think that a child is going to be placed at USDB, when they get placed here, we become under the code the designated LEA. We then become the LEA for that student. That doesn't happen until they're placed here. They have to go through the district. The IEP team meets. We are invited. Critical to this discussion is that IEP is present. They cannot be placed at, USDB has to be present. The IEP team cannot place a student here without USDB authorization. So USDB has to be present at those IEP meetings. Once they do, they come through either a 504, an IEP, or we call it preschool service plan, because technically 504 isn't for little babies. So we have what's called the USDB preschool service plan, which is like a 504, and they are placed here. And we become their designated LEA.
Well, and Michelle, you told me that sometimes people forget the reevaluations too.
Yes.
They do need to be included in the reevals.
Yes, technically with the state, USDB, even if the child is not placed with us. So they have a student they've been serving, they called us into the initial IEP, and for whatever reason, they placed the student in the district. And USDB maybe is not involved because the district themselves is providing the services. Anytime you do a reeval, you should bring USDB to the table just to get their input, to see if we're still on the same page or if there's any services that may now be available. And sometimes parents, even though the team may think that the child needs more intensive services, or maybe they don't need as intensive services, there may be differences of opinion, and sometimes they change their minds and they see different things later in life. So it's good to invite us.
And another reason to invite USDB to those IEPs or the 3-year evals is that we do, as we had talked about, all of these different state resources that are the students and the families can access, and a lot of times they don't know about those. And so we like to make sure that they're aware of being able to access the enrichment activities and the ERC and low vision assessments and whatnot that are statewide. I think this was actually just what we said. So I think we can go on.
Yeah, this is the same thing we just said. Yep. Just read that. It's true. We can skip this one too, just in the interest of time. Is talking about our outreach services and the importance of that. Here is our audiology services that we offer. I do think that one's short, and we could probably do that one.
So USDB Audiology provides services to any child with hearing loss from birth to age 22 years of age that's in a public education setting or is in early intervention. To get our services, they have to be referred through early intervention if they're birth to 3 years old, or they can be referred to us from their district or charter school.
So the USDB Audiology team serves students in Ogden, Salt Lake City, Springville, and St. George in the sound booths that are located there. We also have a van that has a sound booth in it that we can take to other remote areas of Utah. Oftentimes, these students are not able to see an audiologist for many months, and therefore they have limited access to language, and this negatively impacts their language development.
USDB Audiology provides treatment and evaluation for children with hearing loss throughout the entire state of Utah by providing evaluations, ear mold impressions, amplification, adjustments, and fittings, and then also helping with teachers in an educational setting so that they can understand children with hearing loss.
So the goal of educational audiology is to support students with hearing loss by evaluating their hearing, listening, and auditory processing deficits that can affect their academic success, their communication abilities, and their psychosocial well-being.
So we provide support for all teachers and teachers of the deaf throughout the state and in educational settings, whether it be a district setting, charter schools, or here at USDB, JMS, KPS, and EDS, so that they can help teach the students to the best of their ability while also providing the support the child needs to be able to have that appropriate education. So we provide amplification systems, classroom amplification systems, and personal amplification systems for children with hearing loss that can connect to their, they're called HAT systems, so it's hearing assistive technology systems that we actually can connect the child to the teacher so that they have a better signal to noise ratio, so that they have a better chance of hearing what the teacher is saying as opposed to the noise that's happening around them, so that they can grab educational content from the teachers. So for a student to qualify for audiology services at USDB, we request that the student fail 2 hearing screenings at their school district, with their school district, and then any school that's located in a district that is less than 3% of the statewide student population can receive our services at no cost, and then districts that have larger than 3% of the statewide student population can actually contract with USDB for all audiology services. Without these vital services, students with hearing loss would be severely underserved and unable to access their education. So by supporting these audiologic needs, we are able to close the gap for language deprivation in deaf children.
Audiology is so important to what we provide. We try to find our students as soon as possible. We even talk about the reason we have the van. We now have 2 vans. The reason we have the van helps us go to places across the state where there are no audiologists in the area. They don't exist. And so we go to those locations and we do hearing evaluations. We help them with those types of things. The biggest service that I think those of you who are 504 coordinators will access through USDB is what they call the hearing assistive technology. You might know them as FM systems, although we don't use FM anymore, but those terms stick around. But at any rate, we have a whole bunch of systems, and every child's system is different. So people come here, our audiologists assess and evaluate what needs to happen. They bring that device into the classroom that matches the cochlear implant or hearing aid that the student is using. So they're very unique. And they help, they call it, I heard her use the word signal to noise ratio. What that means is those classrooms, every classroom is extremely loud. Every classroom. If you do a test on those, they are very, very loud. So that's for hearing children too. And if they want to really hear and understand what's being said, they need to hear the teacher's voice signal better than the noise behind them. So we want that signal to noise ratio to be quite distinct. So anyway, they present all of those tools to the children, to the teachers, to make it so that that child can succeed in that classroom. Audiology is critical, hence the reason it's grown, and they've been tremendous help. We also have interpreters. There's a link here on this one, the next slide. I won't do that one just yet, but the thing I want to stress upon that is that interpreters must be certified. I must reiterate that. Interpreters must be certified. And in our state, they have to be a 3.5 or greater. That's a rating scale that they use for educational interpreters. We can also hire your professional interpreters to assist in the classroom. That rating will also work. But they have to be certified. You can't just put someone in there who they say they have learned some sign. It's just a travesty. Anybody who usually says, I know some sign, to me, honestly, it triggers me a bit, because I'm like, they're very different too. You can see it in my hands. There's signers. These are the baby signers. There's the I can get along sign with people, and then there's signers. We need signers. And so that's the thing I want to emphasize. If you have an interpreter, and if you're, as people keep referencing, we'll talk it briefly, I think at the end, there's different rules that are in place as who pays, but we want your students to have an interpreter. We want them to have access. I often get people ask me, they said, you know, they only need an interpreter from their English class and their math class. The rest of the day, they're okay. Blows my mind. I'm like, no, if you need an interpreter, you need an interpreter the whole day. You don't want to just pick and you know, pick the classes that you think are the most relevant. All of it is relevant. So if you need an interpreter, you're going to need it throughout the day. We do make sure the interpreters get a break. They don't go to lunch with the kids. The kids are going to have to navigate that on their own. Their recesses, they navigate that on their own because the teachers, you know, the interpreters need break time as well. As you saw in the video, they sometimes have to prep. So they need time to prep sometimes for some of the more difficult classes that have concepts they want to make sure they illustrate correctly in the air. So please contact us if you need one. And I will leave this as a link. You are welcome to watch this. This tells you how to work with interpreters in the classrooms and how to interact with them. So we'll just skip that.
Okay, I talked about deafblind services and the uniqueness of that we are in the state of Utah. So I think I can we can forego this slide. Okay, so here's what Michelle was talking about as far as funding is concerned for USDB. So we have what's called the 3% rule, and that is in board rule that was established, we think, sometime around 2009. And this means that all school districts who have more than 3% of the total student population, not special ed population, total student population, all of those larger districts, they have a choice. They can either provide their own services in vision and hearing, or they can contract with USDB to provide those vision and hearing services. At this point, they can either contract with either vision or with hearing, but they don't have to contract with both. We have a couple of districts that say, you know, we need help with 2 of your teachers that are visually impaired, but we have 2 also that we're keeping employed. But all of the districts that are above the 3% rule, so 3% of the total student populations, must either contract with us or provide their own funding to hire themselves their own vision and hearing professionals. Michelle, did you want to add anything to that?
I just want to, as an idea, right now we're sitting at about 20,000. So just around, it hovers around 20,000. Yeah. If your school district has 20,000 or more students, then you're going to be considered a big district. These are the districts like Alpine, Granite, Davis, Salt Lake, Nebo. They're the bigger districts. The rest of you, charter schools, smaller districts, you can access our resources at no cost.
And we also have had 3% districts that have said, we have so-and-so going on maternity leave, can you help us out? And we do our very best to help them out during those situations as well. So. Okay, this is, I don't know, Holly, tell us about time. How are we doing on time?
We are at 2:07 and we have until 2:30.
Okay, this one is a blind sensitivity video that is great, just giving some blind etiquette for how we treat people who are blind. Some of those, one of the things that was when I got into this field that I thought was awkward for me, not for anybody else, but for me, was that I didn't know when I should say, you know, if I'm walking by somebody, do I say hi? Do I identify who I am? Just those kinds of things. So this is a great video to explain some of those things.
We see a graduate from the Utah School for the Blind. She speaks from a hallway on the Ogden campus.
A lot of times people are afraid to help blind people because they're not exactly sure how to help. It's just best to not assume and just always ask questions.
Video shows a man walking along a sidewalk with his white cane.
The more that you're around a blind person, everyone has different levels of independence, and so the more you're around them, the more you're going to recognize, like, oh, this person tends to need help with this, or they don't need help with this. I do sighted guide sometimes. I typically don't need it. I can just follow someone. I just prefer when someone just says, hey, do you want to do sighted guide, or can you follow me? You know, I can't speak for every blind person on, you know, do I prefer sighted guide or do I not, or, you know, and so that's why I think the big thing is asking questions, is because everyone has a different personality and everyone has different levels of independence. And so, yeah, it just goes back to that. Just, you have to figure out, you have to ask them. Because some people do prefer to do things on their own, and some people would prefer sighted guide.
Two women walk together. One holds her white cane. The other woman serves as a sighted guide and holds her arm.
It's never appropriate to grab someone's cane unless you ask them first. That's the blind person's way of getting around. That's how they get around safely. And so it's never okay to grab their cane if you think that you're going to grab their cane to lead them, because it's, you know, sometimes people think it's more appropriate to lead them by their cane rather than touching them. It's just as bad. And so that's why I put the responsibility of asking questions on sighted people. If they want to help, that's kind of their responsibility to ask questions, but it's the blind person has a responsibility as well to tell them yes or no, or tell them what they need.
We see a graduate from the Utah School.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I like to tell people when we're talking about blind sensitivity is that just as the young woman was talking about, it's always okay to ask. It's always okay to identify yourself. And even when you're putting your hand out to shake their hand, say, I have my hand out, so I'm happy to meet you. The blind population is just very, very willing to talk about their blindness. I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but they do like to answer questions, and they also like to be asked, "Is this accessible? Can you accept? Can you access what you're in need of?" The other thing is that when we're making things accessible for students, I don't ever want to be assuming that it's accessible based on my experience. So I might look at a website, or I might look at a PowerPoint or something and say, yes, that's accessible because I'm looking at it from a list A, B, C, D, that I'm marking off that list of accessibility. But we have people, one individual in particular who is great. He's completely blind, and I always like to run things through him because he's blind, right? He can actually tell me. It's not just a list of things. He looks at it from a lot of different angles. I never want to speak for an individual, a student or a person who is blind, as a sighted person, because I don't understand. And I think that that's a big takeaway. So we can, I think, move to the next slide.
And we have, I think this one runs a little bit longer. We can do that one as well. And this is the deaf sensitivity, because they're different. We work together, blind and deaf. They put us together because we're low incidence disabilities, but really awkward interactions, right? Because my students can't hear what they're saying, and they can't see what they're signing. So this is deaf sensitivity training, and I hope you catch those.
Communicating with the deaf and hard of hearing. Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind, tips and best practices. Tip 1. Use words deaf or hard of hearing. Avoid the term impaired. Impaired, the word itself means something that is broken. Yeah, look at me. Do I look broken? No, I'm fine. So you look at that word impaired as if we're broken or we need to be fixed. No, we're fine. We function just fine in life. I drive a car. I have a job. I went to college. I graduated. What do I need to fix? I don't need to fix anything. I'm deaf, or I'm hard of hearing. Tip 2. Include everyone in your conversations.
One thing I really hate is when I see a group of people having a conversation and I notice them laughing about something. So I step up and say, hey, what's going on? One thing that I never want to hear is, I'll just tell you in a minute, or, it's not important. I don't really feel included in that conversation, and that is something we really need to avoid.
Tip 3. Be patient if miscommunication occurs.
The interesting thing about communication is that miscommunications happen. And when they happen, some people feel scared, or they're worried about the misinterpretation, the misunderstanding. They may have negative feelings arise, or they're trying to feel out the situation. Maybe they're intimidated, maybe they're a little anxious, irritated. There's no need for that. Take the time to clarify the communication, to clear up the air. We're all busy people, but it's not an excuse for us to say, hey, let's hold everything up and let's just take the time to really work together to understand each other, whether that's in sign language, writing back and forth, gesturing with body language, or what have you. We can take a positive perspective to work together. We're all in this together, and that's the beauty of USDB.
Tip 4. USDB interpreters are available. Schedule and use them.
One of the beautiful things about USDB is that we have access to interpreters, not just for us as deaf people, but for everyone else as well. And we have wonderful interpreters here at USDB that make every effort to facilitate communication.
Tip 5. Look directly at the deaf person, not the interpreter, when communicating.
Here at USDB, we have staff interpreters available, and so take advantage of that. If you have a planned meeting ahead of time, request the interpreter, make sure that everyone has full access. When you are talking with me, make sure that you have direct eye contact and that you are speaking directly to me. Use pronouns like I or you, and not he said or she said. I want to feel like you are having the conversation with me, and the interpreter is only there to facilitate the communication.
Tip 6. Everyone is responsible for effective communication, not just the deaf.
When you are thinking of meeting with a deaf person, it's important that you first know your abilities. If you can communicate in ASL, then there's no need for an interpreter. We can just communicate directly. But if you don't know any sign, often people assume that it is the deaf person's responsibility to request an interpreter. No, you too can request an interpreter. Deaf people have been shouldering the responsibility our entire lives for requesting interpreters. Really, you need the interpreter as well. It's not just us. It's typically people envision it's an interpreter for the deaf. No, it's for us to have a conversation, to communicate. So request that interpreter yourself. It's part of being here and working on campus. Just do that. It's easy.
Tip 7. With impromptu interactions, use text or written communication.
If you happen to encounter a deaf person and you don't know sign language but want to communicate with them, modern day technology is awesome. We have our phones and can utilize the speech to text feature to communicate back and forth easily. It's important to know that not all deaf can lip read. You may have to use gesturing or writing back and forth, maybe using a whiteboard. Also, if you feel that you're not being understood, the deaf person may know of somebody nearby who could help facilitate that communication if needed. The important thing is making the effort and showing respect for them in demonstrating that you want to have a conversation with them. I promise you that the deaf will trust you and then in turn make the effort to communicate with you.
Final tip. Plan shorter virtual meetings and include breaks when possible.
When you are having a meeting, you need to be mindful of the little things. A deaf person attending an online meeting for more than 2 hours can be challenging. We do experience eye strain, and many of us do check out at that point. So keeping that in mind, you can provide additional breaks or shorten the length of your meeting.
Again, welcome to USDB. I am happy that you have joined our team, and if you have more questions related to this topic, you can read the communication policy in depth. Thank you.
So that obviously is primarily for our students or for our staff when we hire them and we help them understand, because we don't want there to be communication problems between one another and with other people. There's a lot of people here who are still learning sign or don't work directly with deaf children, so they don't sign. So it's an important tip. But the one thing I want to emphasize, if you are utilizing an interpreter, which you may have, as Rachel said, please use a direct eye contact with the deaf person. It's kind of awkward when you say, you tell her this, that, and you look this way. Keep your eyes on the deaf person, talk directly to the deaf person. It will help and it'll go a long way. Holly.
So I love these sensitivity videos, and just quick anecdote, because, you know, it can be like uncomfortable to know when you can't understand. Like, okay, so I was at a party that my neighbor threw this last weekend for the holidays, and I was sitting next to this person, and I think he had a TBI, traumatic brain injury. He was in a car accident, but I couldn't understand his speech. And I was like panicking because I wanted to understand what he was saying. He pulled out his phone and and did a text. So I took his phone and I did a text back, and we ended up talking about how annoyed we were with the conversation that other people were having, and that I wanted to leave the party, and and it felt comfortable. And I was like, okay, it's okay to find a different way of communicating. I don't have to struggle to understand and have him be frustrated. Like, we can find another way. And it was fun. We had a great conversation.
They appreciate when you try. I can't emphasize that enough. Appreciate that you try. Do you know the most traumatic and disappointing experience for deaf children, deaf adults too, is Thanksgiving. They hate Thanksgiving. They hate going to Thanksgiving because they're isolated. Everybody's having all these conversations that are going on around them, and they have no idea what's being said. And if there's one person that interprets for them, then that's hard on that one person because they're interpreting and trying to be a part of the game plan when whatever they're doing at Thanksgiving. And anyway, it's hard. But if there's somebody in that room who doesn't know sign, who takes that initiative and says, you matter to me, you matter enough that I'm going to stop here and I'm going to include you in the conversation, goes a long way. So you can go to the next one.
So these next, I don't think we have time for these next videos. So we have a deaf-blind etiquette video, and then we also have a guide dog etiquette video that we show as well. But I think that we probably need to talk about Holly, it's completely up to you as far as what you're wanting to do. We talk about collaboration with USBE. We can go to, these are there in the PowerPoint for your benefit. You can look at them. They're very, very interesting. And also we have available videos for every single one of our divisions. And as far as Michelle showed the extracurricular video for the deaf, we also have one for the blind. Any questions that you have, we have videos that you can we can show you, and then you could show others as well. So to explain, it's a very intricate, we have intricate programs.
Yeah, so they'll get a copy of the videos.
Yes.
There was one thing I wanted to make sure I covered, and I wanted to make sure that Dana or Teresa were able to chime in because they're resources at the USB. But for 504 coordinators, for people like general educators in the schools, I'm always talking about Child Find. So I'm just wondering, what are the kinds of things, because I know that sometimes students who they're in a location where they can't really see or they can't really hear, and they don't have the services, and nobody's noticed, and so they act out their behavior. Like, what are some of the Child Find things that we can look for so we can see it as not a behavior issue, but a an auditory, like a sensory issue.
Oh, that happens on the deaf side quite a bit. I know that I have a lot of students that they get labeled as autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're autistic. Or the other one that's hard is a student moves from another country, so they think they're ELL. And truly, it doesn't matter whether they speak, English or Spanish or Japanese. It really doesn't matter because they can't hear any of it. So what's important is to just be watching. And how are they responding to sound? Are they turning their head to look at it? I mean, those are just some initial things that they usually know. In the state of Utah, we know because we find out at birth. But if they come from another state or another country, that may be a surprise. They just think they're just delayed. And they have a very different outlook on children with disabilities in other countries. America is an amazing place to be if you have a disability, because we look and recognize and value students with all ranges of abilities. So yeah.
And I will say USDB is not responsible for child find. The districts are responsible for the child find. However, I don't think that anybody expects the local school districts, especially the small ones and the charter schools, to be the experts in that. I would say if you have a concern or a question, so for instance, you're noticing that a student isn't paying attention visually, that they're kind of like this. Well, that could be a number of things going on. But it's okay to call us. It's okay to call and if anything, make a referral. You can, my information will be there. You can call me. I will get you to the right director. If there are questions, I would just say call and we can explain things to you. Again, we're not in charge of child find, but we're more than happy to help in making sure that the students are receiving the services and making sure that they're evaluated for the services.
And working with the parents, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If parents are coming and they're saying that there's some concerns with attention, there's concerns with some behavior, I feel like we need to be looking at vision and hearing, are they getting the information? Because if they're not, that's a good indication they're probably going to be some problems, right? There's probably going to, if they can't communicate and they also don't have access to the same things that their sighted peers have, they're frustrated. So please, there's never a time that we say, oh my gosh, why are people reaching out? We want people to reach out. We're hungry for that, so that we know what's going on in the state. So that would be my closing words as far as USDB is concerned. That if
you have any like checklists or something like that we can give out so that they can kind of know what to look for, because there is, there's like attention and autism and all of the things that all get blended together, and it's hard to isolate.
On the deaf side, we have what's called milestones. They're language milestones. And so that's on our website that you can look up USDB language milestones. And you can watch. So the child at this age should be doing this. Are they doing that? So that's helpful. But I agree with Susan. This is what we do.
Yeah, I would say don't shoulder it alone.
Yeah.
We
are happy to help you
alone. Help it. Let us support.
Speaking of, any quick words from Dana or Teresa?
Sorry, Dana and Teresa.
Oh, no, you're fine. Teresa, will you go to the next slide? So I just wanted to go back to the accessibility. And I know, Susan, you touched on it and Michelle touched on it and stuff. And I think the biggest thing to take away from the accessibility is accessibility is what ensures inclusion for our students. Having those materials ready for them. It allows them to participate in the classroom. And that's what we want from them. I know it needs to be planned ahead of time. That, it takes a lot of planning. But as we have down, it can be a significant barrier to their learning and being included. And also don't forget about, post high school when they graduate. I think I was talking to Susan, the other day about a student of mine who is now in her 30s, completely blind, but those independent living skills she missed somewhere in high school. Like I follow her on Facebook. We're friends on Facebook, and just the struggles that I see. It's, we want to ensure that they're ready, just like everyone else, to be independent, when they move on from high school, or at 22, when they exit out.
Teresa, anything you wanted to add? Your contact information is going to be available. There it is.
And we work closely. Dana and I work very closely together in collaboration with different things like professional development, and also accessibility is very big. So we do collaborate a lot with different ways we can make it accessible with both USBE and USDB.
Great. I've appreciated you sharing all of this. There's so many things that I have learned. And so you all have our contact information. For me, if you are not on my listserv and you want to get all of the materials, I will send it to Kendra Muir, who is our nursing specialist, so that she can send it out through her listserv as well. But email me if you're not on my listserv. If you want to be on the listserv, I will send out that information. I'll send out something so that you could earn the Midas credit. And the recording, like I said, is going to be on YouTube indefinitely, much to my chagrin. And then
that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, oh boy.
Well, I know. But luckily, Jerry trims up some of my that I do. So, but that'll still be on it, what I just did. So the next webinar we're thinking to plan is in the spring, looking at how do we have a good meeting, come up with a good plan, implement the plan. We don't really talk about what makes a good plan. So I'm going to have I'm hoping a couple of 504 coordinators. I want to get one from a charter school. If you want to volunteer and be on YouTube indefinitely, email me. So we can talk about what makes a good plan and how to help support schools to make a good plan. I just, I hear rumors that there's some questions. So we never run out of material. So let me know if there's a webinar you want in the future, but I'll be setting up a time. And so, yeah, and let us know if you have any questions. I appreciate you all being here and doing the work that you do. It's not easy. So take care.
It's the best job. I just want you to know.
We love it.
We love, there is a family here. It's a family at USDB.
Yeah,
we love these fields.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and the happiest since this is going to be on forever, happy holidays for the whole year. Because nobody's going to know what month it is a few months down the road. All right, take care. We'll see you.
Thank you.